Thank you, Chairman. Thank you so much, Madam Secretary, Mr. Hadley, for appearing before this committee. First thing I'd like to ask you about relates to our organization over at State Department. State and USAID seem to operate in stovepipes of sorts as we carry out our diplomacy efforts, our aid efforts, and the stovepiping continues, not just within our State Department and USAID, but across agencies as we look to try and improve our diplomatic efforts. Our interagency coordination seems to be fertile for improvement, at least from this vantage point. So, Mr. Hadley first, if you please, and then perhaps Secretary Albright, do you believe it would make sense to establish a statutory requirement for State and USAID to periodically produce and submit to this committee a national diplomacy and development strategy in direct support of our national security strategy? It would establish real diplomatic and development priorities, objectives, metrics, balance ends and means, and at least that would be the idea. I'll be quiet for now and get your thoughts on this.
I think it's a terrific idea. And what I would hope to see is that we get a national security strategy out of the White House and the administration that reflects the priorities of the president, hopefully this fall. And then that document would be taken to develop a national defense strategy, if you will, with the Defense Department in the lead, and the kind of national diplomacy, development, and democracy strategy out of the State Department. And I would hope those two organizations would develop their products on an interagency basis and in coordination with each other, because in theaters like Iraq and Afghanistan, they have to be mutually supportive. The hardest thing in the government is integration. It's all organized with vertical cones, with people operating in their narrow spaces. And the hardest thing is to integrate across those in service of a national strategy. And we need the kind of process you described to give that strategy and to integrate and give people, basically the plans for going forward to achieve that strategy.
Secretary Albright?
I do believe that when we need to have more of a whole-of-government approach to all of this. In addition to the Defense Department, there are other parts of the government that also need to be a part of it. We were talking earlier today with some people about the Agriculture Department needs to be a part with PL 480 and how it affects our farmers, et cetera. So one of the things, frankly, Secretary Clinton tried under this thing called the QDDR of trying to bring more rationality to the State Department budget and the USAID budget. I have to tell you, I tried, because part of the thing that you want to do is to have there be some relationship between the projects that USAID does and American policy. But I do think the stovepiping hurts. I can't tell you how many various reorgs I have looked at ever since even the Carter administration on how to bring all this together.
So do you think codifying the QDDR
I think it would make
would
a
help?
difference. Yeah. But it also is in terms of the preparation of it. That kind of action together is good for work.
Forcing mechanism to plan. Yes. Let me briefly pivot to the AUMF. I know something you've spoken to in a previous hearing here on the Hill. On March 22nd, we had Secretary of Defense Mattis testify before the Senate Defense Appropriations Subcommittee, indicating that he thought that a new AUMF focused on ISIS would be a statement of the American people's resolve. It would hearten our allies, something of importance to this committee, certainly, and give our troops a sense of purpose. You echoed your support for that, Mr. Hadley. You said you thought it would be a good thing in response to Representative Banks and your testimony to HASC recently. Secretary Albright, you indicated you believe that there needs to be an AUMF. Why do you believe there needs to be an AUMF? I'll start with you, Secretary Albright.
I think, first of all, because the old ones are not really representative of what is going on now. And second, because I think that we need a public debate about what America's role is in the world. And in many ways, an AUMF is a very good vehicle for it. I know Senator Kaine has been talking about this for some time. I do believe in the executive-legislative relationship on this. But most of all, I think the American people need to understand why we send our troops somewhere, what is the purpose of it, well, how does it add? And it is a great mechanism for actually forcing a national debate that Steve and I have been talking about generally is necessary, and especially given what's already been said by some of you, which is we're in a different kind of a world, and the American public needs to witness their representatives having this serious discussion.
Well, I agree with you. That's why I've introduced an AUMF, Senate Joint Res 31 on March 2nd. Mr. Hadley, anything to add to the Secretary's commentary?
I agree with Madeline. I've not read the resolution you introduced, but we need a new AUMF to clarify the mission and the authorities in light of the fact that we have a new administration in the White House. Second, we need the kind of debate, national debate Madeline talked about. And third, the Congress needs to be on record in support of this effort against ISIS. You are the vehicle for the expression of the popular will, and you need to be on record.
Thank you.
We expect